It's Movie Mania here on Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show. This time out, welcome back to Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Skylar Sigdaddy Sigmund, joined by my bro, J.O. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, man. Doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing all right myself. Splurged a little bit this past weekend. Spent too much money on wrestling stuff, but hey, you got to splurge every once in a while.
I'm gonna say you only live once. Might as well enjoy your surroundings when you're alive, buying some things. That's what I always say.
Hey, got to do it. This episode today, we're focusing on our top 5 favorite movies featuring professional wrestlers. So this is going to be a lot of fun because there's actually a lot of movies featuring professional wrestlers out there. It's some of them you just don't even think of.
You're right, because there were a few that jumped out immediately, but then I had to do some research, and there were a few that I found like, oh my God, I watched that movie, but I totally forgot so-and-so was in it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to go through these. Hope you enjoyed last week's episode with us talking about the crowd reactions to Cody Rhodes. Will the crowd turn on him or will it not in WWE like it did in AEW? Also want to give a shout out to Kyle from the Apron Bump podcast. Joined his show last week to talk about some 2003 Ring of Honor, Expect the Unexpected, and Night of Champions. So stay tuned for that soon from the Apron Bump podcast, wherever you get your podcast. But let's get to the topic of discussion here on Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show today. Our top 5 favorite movies featuring professional wrestlers. I will start off and JL will then follow me, and then we go back and forth until we reach number 1. We'll give honorable mentions right before the number 1 spot. So here we go. Number 5 on my list is from the biggest movie star in the world, John Cena. Nope, The Rock. It's The Rock. But it's one of his first major movies, Walking Tall, back in 2004. I thought it was a very funny movie. It's a former U.S. Army Special Forces sergeant returning home looking for work at a cedar mill that actually was closed. And then there's drugs involved. And then eventually this Rock becomes sheriff and all that. And it leads to a big fight at the end where The Rock eventually wins. And it actually features a Wrestlemania match winner in that one as well, Johnny Knoxville.
Walking Tall, really? Johnny Knoxville was in that one? I knew of the movie. It's been forever since I've seen that one. I definitely know the one you're talking about, but Johnny Knoxville was in that?
Yeah, Johnny Knoxville ended up being The Rock's deputy.
Wow.
As a sheriff.
I mean, I like how you started out with The Rock, because I remember we were talking about this and you told me, oh, don't forget you can pick movies with The Rock in it. And then I already had one picked, and then I even thought to myself, I was like, man, we could do a list with just The Rock movies, because that man likes to be in movies.
He's in a lot of movies. Oh, there's a movie I even forgot on here. But I'll mention it later on. I got to remember. I got to take note of it real quick, because if I don't, I'll be upset I forgot it. Because it was a very funny movie The Rock was in. But yeah, that's my number 5 movie, Walking Tall from 2004. Jaya, what's your number 5?
All right. So before I do my number 5, again, tell me a little bit about your list. Is it more so movies that are starring these wrestlers, or are they just a little bit a part of the movie?
So some of them are a part of the movie, and others are a major part of the movie. So it's kind of a mishmash.
Okay, because mine's like that too. And mine is from 2004, a Marvel movie, way before the MCU that we know today, The Punisher. And let me ask you this: do you know who was in there?
Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash.
He gets
Yep.
the shit kicked out of him.
He does get the shit kicked out of him, but he does a little ass kicking himself to Thomas James the Punisher. And I liked this role or this specific scene because even though he didn't have any speaking lines, his just presence of being this massive 7-foot tall guy beating up the main character, plus the stunts were awesome in it, so that's why I liked it. And that's what I picked as my number 5, Kevin Nash and the Punisher.
And isn't a kitchen sink used in that scene?
Yep, figuratively and literally, he throws everything, including the kitchen sink, at him.
Yeah, I remember that scene. I watched that movie a couple of years, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, but I remember that scene specifically because it was a brawl to end them all for certain. That's for sure. I forgot about that movie. See, there's like movies on here we completely forget where professional wrestlers are in them. And but my number 4 is probably the oldest movie of my. It is the oldest movie of my bunch. It's called They Live, from 1988, featuring the late great Roddy Piper, who would have celebrated a birthday yesterday. But it's a futuristic sci-fi film, really underrated movie. So like in this movie, they're like aliens disguised as humans, and the only person that can see them has these specific sunglasses on, and Roddy Piper picks them out of a trash can and puts them on. His name is Nada in the film, but he's really good in this, and this is home to the famous line, "I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum."
Yep. I cannot tell you how many times, like before I got into wrestling or before I even got into movies, I'd hear that line referenced. People talked about that line, and then when I finally saw the movie, or at least that scene, I was like, oh, so that's where that scene came from. And then later on, when I got into wrestling, I even learned more about it. It's like, wait a minute, Roddy Piper was the guy who said that line in the movie.
And it's like such an iconic movie line. Like you'll see it in like different videos and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I watched this movie for the first time, I think a year or so ago. And I was blown away because it was so like it fit into the time, like our timeline now. It was so odd. But yeah, that's my number 4, They Live, starring Roddy Piper. Kick-ass movie. Definitely recommend checking it out. J.O., what's your number 4?
My number 4 came out a year before yours did. 1987, Predator. And can you tell me who was in that one?
Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I'm on a roll right now.
And you're talking about iconic lines. Don't forget the one where the character, Shane Black's character, is talking to Jesse Ventura's and says, "Hey, you're bleeding, man." And then, of course, Jesse Ventura says, "I ain't got time to bleed."
Gosh. I ain't got time to bleed. Oh my!
And
gosh.
I mean, what more do I have to say about Predator? Awesome action movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger at the top of his career. It was just probably one of the earliest scary / goriest movies I've ever seen. I'm pretty sure I got in trouble for watching it one time because I was still pretty young.
Oh my!
Of course, I didn't see it in theaters because it came out in 1987. It might have been on TV sometime.
Yeah, you're gonna hate me for this. You're gonna think I'm the worst person ever. I have never seen Predator.
Sigdaddy, no.
I know. I'm embarrassed now. I'm very, very embarrassed. Nope.
Have you seen any of the Predators?
No. I think I've seen Alien versus Predator, and that was old, like long time ago.
Okay, that's something, but man, Sigdaddy, you gotta add that on your much watch list. It's a classic.
I'm adding it right now on my hand. Imaginary writing it. Imaginary. What the heck? I'm writing it on my hand with my invisible marker.
And just one more. I mean, another iconic line. Arnold Schwarzenegger. If it can bleed, we can kill it, or it can die. It's one of those. I'm butchering it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah. Oh my. But moving on to number 3, as I continue to embarrass myself with my lack of movie watching, that one was definitely not on my list. It probably wouldn't have made my list if I even knew about the movie. I knew that Jesse Ventura was in it. It was in the back of my mind, but I didn't ever think of it. But my number 3, anyway, is from 2008. It's The Wrestler.
Ah, of course. Man, I didn't even think about that one.
So yeah, this one this one is a lot. There's wrestlers in the movie. They're not like the main characters, but there's quite a few wrestlers in this movie that are shown at one point. But it's Mickey Rourke as this Randy the Ram Robinson, past his prime wrestler. He's working at a deli market part-time. He's working indie shows on weekends. He had a heart attack backstage after a death match against notable deathmatch wrestler Necro Butcher. CZW Combat Zone Wrestling's featured on this. Ring of Honor is featured on this as well. It's a great movie. Like, it's really like, it gives you a look at a down on his luck wrestler pretty much at the end of his career. But it's all built up to the end of the movie where it's Ayatollah, where he has to face his greatest rival, the Ayatollah, which is played by Ernest the Cat Miller. If you've ever heard of him, J.O.
Name sounds familiar. I only know that name because I did watch the movie again a while ago.
He was there for a cup of coffee. He was at WWE for a cup of coffee, pretty much.
a little dramatic of a movie. A little taste I see back there, because most of mine are like some action flicks, but you got some artistic movies in that list.
Yeah, just a little bit. Here's some of the wrestlers featured in it. Since I didn't want to go over the plot terribly much, but it was just a little bit of Cliff Notes version of it. But wrestlers in there include Robbie E., who's a TNA wrestler, Necro Butcher, very notable deathmatch wrestler, the Blue Meanie from ECW, Ron the Truth Killings, R-Truth.
R-Truth was in there?
Yep. And you'll be surprised at some of these other names in here too. So you haven't heard this. Jay Lethal's in there as well. I don't remember his cameo. Johnny Valiant, Austin Aries, Cesaro.
What?
Yep. The late Larry Sweeney, founder of CZW, John Zandig, Chucky T, who now works for AEW, Nigel McGuinness, who is a commentator for NXT, I think, UK, DJ Hyde from CZW. We watched a match of his against Matt Tremont from Cage of Death 2012. So we have a watch along available. Just kind of give that a quick plug. In the archives on Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show on Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts anyway. And also WWE wrestler Drew Gulak was in that movie as well.
Did they play themselves?
Yeah, there was like backstage, like they kind of, it was like a lot of cameos. That's what I'm saying in this movie. But this movie got nominated for multiple Academy Awards. Actually won 2 Golden Globes, including Best Original Song in a Motion Picture. It's like Bruce Springsteen sang a song on here. I didn't realize that. But Mickey Rourke won Best Performance by an Actor in a Motion Picture Drama. He won the Golden Globe for that. But yeah, I do have a little bit more of a artistic piece in there. That's definitely the most artistic of the movies I have chosen for my top 5. That's my number 3 one, The Wrestler. J.O., what's your number 3?
My number 3 comes from the year 2017, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, featuring the one and only Dave Bautista. Now, I kind of struggle with this one because of course, there's Guardians of the Galaxy 1, there's the second one. I mean, I probably could have put a few of the Infinity War movies in there, but I wanted to go with one where he was mostly featured on. And
central focus, right?
Yeah, and he was hilarious in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And even Dave Bautista, during this time period, off doing some movie roles. Another one that I considered was, have you seen Spectre, the James Bond movie? I say he plays a character in there. No speaking lines, if I recall. He's one of just the big enforcer, silent type. But even though he didn't speak, he was really good in the role. But of course, with how funny he was compared to this in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I had to go with this one.
And I'm going to give you a spoiler here, folks. This is not the last time a Guardians of the Galaxy movie will be on the list. But
David Bautista is such a good actor.
Yeah, and Guardians of the Galaxy was certainly a kickoff for him. He launched.
Oh yeah,
it was like a launching pad for him. And this next movie was, I don't know if it was a launching pad for really anybody, but a lot of people got some screen time in this one. A lot of professional wrestlers. My number 2 is from 2005. It's The Longest Yard.
God, that is such a good one. See, I know we talked about it before, and you said you were going to put it on there, so that's why I didn't put it on mine, because I know you were. So I was like, I don't have to waste a spot. We'll talk about it. But man, there's so many people in that movie. It's so good.
Yeah, and it's if you haven't seen this movie, well, it's all just a build up to the game of the cons versus the guards. But some of the cons in this movie, professional wrestlers, Bob Sapp, also an MMA fighter. He's Switowski. Turley, the Great Khali. Goldberg, also known as Battle, who has a giant hammer in his pants. Also prominently featured actors in this, Burt Reynolds, Chris Rock as Caretaker, Nelly, who's Megget, Nicholas Turturro as Brucey, Terry Crews as Cheeseburger Eddie, Michael Irvin as Deacon Moss, Tracy Morgan as Miss Tucker, and then Adam Sandler starring as Paul Crew in this movie. But yeah. And then we got the guards, Kevin Nash as Sergeant Engelhart and Steve Austin as Guard Dunham.
Kevin Nash again. Man, that man likes to be in movies as well, it looks like.
He stole the damn show in this one.
He really did. And it shows Kevin Nash's comedic chops. Like the part where they give him the estrogen and he just starts acting like a woman.
If you want to cry, I'll cry with you.
Oh my God.
He's like, get back on the field, man.
Why are you yelling? All I did was care.
Oh my gosh. Witowski in here too. Bob Sapp. You broke in my nose.
I want to say that whoever cast that movie deserves an award, because they crushed it. And even with Steve Austin being a bad guy, he did it so well that you almost hate him because he's doing it so well.
And he's also a racist in this movie.
Yep, he's also a racist in that movie, which isn't Steve Austin at all, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know him personally, but from what I can tell, he's almost universally loved. So.
Yeah, but this movie, gosh, there are so many moments in this movie I laugh my butt off, and it's just I remember this movie fondly, and I could watch it back. I'm almost tempted to watch it back again here, but yeah, that's my number 2, The Longest Yard from 2005. Such a funny movie.
Oh, my number 2.
Yep, your turn for number 2, Jo.
My number 2 is probably the newest movie. I say newest, it's I'm pretty sure over a year old now, but 2021's The Suicide Squad, starring John Cena.
That almost made my list. I had it on my list and then I took it off my list. Like, it fairly nearly made my list.
John Cena in this role was absolutely hilarious. Again, props to whoever cast this movie. He knows how to play an asshole. John Cena knows how to play an asshole, and he plays it very, very well. And he is hilarious. Just his character as Peacemaker. Again, spoiler: when he turns evil, you believed it. When he turns evil,
he is a douchebag, like an absolute douchebag in this movie. He was so funny too, though.
Oh my God, hilarious! And it's kind of. See, I didn't know much about the character when I saw the movie, but I guess his character is just like straightforward, to the point, doesn't get sarcasm. And John Cena just just conveys that kind of person perfectly. Just his delivery of his lines, like the questions he asked, it was awesome. Chef's kiss.
And we got to talk about this as well from that movie. Sylvester Stallone as the shark.
I say get paid a couple millions just to film one line. I'm for it.
Dude, that was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie was Sylvester Stallone as the what's his name? The King Shark. That's
King Shark.
gosh,
Also known as Norway.
dude was hilarious in that. But John Cena, yeah, the Suicide Squad, it made my honorable mentions, but the Suicide Squad is going to serve that movie is going to be looked at as a launching point for John Cena.
Oh, absolutely. Because John Cena, of course, was acting way before this movie came out. He was doing some stuff. He was in the Marine. I watched it. Wasn't the best. I was in 12 Rounds. Again, not the best. I mean, there might have been some other stuff in there, but this is definitely the first role that really, I think, got John Cena like into the limelight. Could be wrong.
He was in a train wreck with Amy Schumer. Yeah, I don't count that. I don't count that either.
The parts I did see from that movie, he did really well. Like the part where a guy called him Mark Wahlberg, but he said, "I look like Mark Wahlberg ate Mark Wahlberg."
Oh man. So we already know the honorable mention. One of the honorable mentions for me is the Suicide Squad. Well, another honorable mention that just kind of came up out of the blue here in my head as we were talking on here was Central Intelligence from Kevin Hart and The Rock.
That was also on my honorable mention. And it was funny, but I mean, The Rock, he can do serious movies. He can do comedy movies. I think he's a little better at the comedy movies.
I think he is too. Like when he doesn't take himself seriously, it's so much more fun.
Oh, absolutely. Because he's this big hulking guy that you think is just, I mean, yeah, he is a badass, but you think he just assumes he's always a badass. No, he knows how to make you laugh.
Well, that's for sure. And him and Kevin Hart have such good on-screen chemistry. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Oh my God. And because I think that reason that works so well is because they're pretty good friends in real life.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you this. So my dad, he never goes to the movie theater, like ever. We went and saw this in the movie theater together. And I don't think outside of me, maybe in my childhood, like once that I remember, this is the only other time he's been to the movie theater. He wanted to go see this movie specifically.
Really? He's that much fan of The Rock or Kevin Hart?
He just thought it looked super funny. And it was, man. That movie was absolutely hilarious. Didn't quite make the top of the list, but hey, it didn't quite make the list, but it's damn close to making the list. But J.O., do you have any other honorable mentions?
Yeah, I have another Rock movie in mind, Fast and Furious 6.
Okay.
And I like that one because The Rock was introduced in Fast 5, and I liked his character there. But I really liked him in Fast and Furious 6, mostly because there was this really dope fight scene where him and Vin Diesel fight. I can't remember the main bad guy's name. But the main bad guy and this other massive unit of a man, Danish bodybuilder, Kim Cold. And yes, that is his real name. Total badass sounding name. And I mean, it's just, I love good fight scenes, good choreography, and that scene had it with The Rock.
Another movie I haven't seen.
Oh my goodness, Skylar.
I just
Any
don't.
of the Fast and Furious?
The early ones, that's about it. And I know they didn't get good until later on because they just didn't take themselves that seriously and became like just a bunch of crazy stunts and it's popcorn flicks pretty much. I just didn't get into that kind of thing. I don't know. It's just me. I know a lot of people like them. They're super popular. So just not for me.
I'll
But
say there's 9 of them now. I think you can really watch up to 7. I think after 7, the Fate wasn't that good in my opinion, and then I haven't even seen F9, which features John Cena now that I think about it.
oh yeah, that
So
does too. Sheesh. Oh man. All right. This is the moment I've been all waiting for. Actually, we've been all waiting for. It's who says that. Somebody says it's the moment I've all been waiting for. Somebody said that in some movie or something. I can't remember.
Is it a movie, or are you talking about Bruce Buffer?
No, it's not Bruce Buffer. It's a movie, actually.
Huh.
It's some movie or TV show. It's the moment I've all been waiting for. Somebody, if you're out there, please tell me what show that is from or a movie that's from, because I know it's from something. I remember it. But the moment we've all been waiting for, our number ones for the top 5 movies featuring professional wrestlers. Drum roll, whatever. Number 1 for me is Guardians of the Galaxy from 2014. Dave Bautista starring as Drax the Destroyer. And that movie's hell-bent on destroying Ronan the Accuser. And then he meets all these crazy group of characters. Vin Diesel, Rocket Bradley Cooper, Peter Quill Star-Lord, played by Chris Pratt, and then Gamora, played by Zoe Saldana. And this movie is really a launching pad where Dave made a name for himself in the movie biz. I think he was struggling pretty bad at this point too, to get roles and stuff. And this was a launching pad for him. And this movie, man, became one of the most beloved Marvel movies and one of my favorite Marvel movies for sure.
Oh, I definitely empathize with those feelings. I remember me and my family went to go watch it in theaters, and my sister was with us, and she didn't know who the Guardians of the Galaxy were. It wasn't too big into the MCU at the time, so she really didn't want to go. But everyone, including my sister, came out of the movie theater and was like, man, that was hilarious. That was an awesome movie.
Yeah, and no one expected it. No one did. Because no one knew about these characters.
No one except the hardcore MCU, Marvel, not MCU, Marvel comic fans knew who these guys were.
Because they were very, I don't know, it wasn't that big of a comic back then. It wasn't like a super popular comic, but dude, they killed it. Dave Bautista was pretty good in this. Even though he was a big dummy in this one, but him not understanding what I think was metaphors was absolutely hilarious. Oh my gosh. And I know there was one line, even though it's not by Dave, but it was by Chris Pratt, and it was like his ship. And it's like, oh, you wouldn't want to take a black light to this ship.
It looked like a freaking Jackson Pollock painting.
Yes. Yes.
Oh God.
Oh my gosh. And him and Groot are not Groot, but him and Rocket arguing at the bar. That they were gambling with some rat thing or whatever. I can't remember what it was, but gosh, there was a bunch of funny moments in that movie. It was the dance off. I think did Dave comment on that too, or was that just Ronan?
It was Ronan.
Gosh, yeah. It's what are you doing?
I was like, dance off.
I'm dancing, you turd blossom.
And side note of that, awesome soundtrack. That movie had an awesome soundtrack.
Gosh, that thing that's I don't know what I don't know if it'll probably be arguably one of the best Marvel soundtracks out there.
Absolutely.
One of the best. Guardians 2 was really good too. It's hard to beat the original.
I would agree. And again, the only reason I have put it on mine is because Drax has a little more of a focus in that.
And I just sorry.
I was just gonna say, side note, have you seen the trailer for Thor Love and Thunder yet?
I got a peek of that here today. So that looks fun. That looks like it's gonna be a ton of fun.
Yes, and I'm glad the Guardians are back. You know what? I've been thinking about it. I think my hot take is the Guardians are more fun than the Avengers. There, I said it.
Damn, that's a hot take. Not
Come
very
at me,
often.
MCU fans.
Not very often do we get into non-wrestling talk on this show. And you made a controversial take. Hopefully the Marvel fans aren't coming down your throat right now.
I was like, don't
Listening
forget,
to
I'll put my socials at the end of this. Come at me.
Come at me in the socials right now, bro. Come at me. I do like the Guardians better than probably the Avengers. Well, there's like 800 Avengers, aren't there?
Oh, that is true. Yeah, I mean, like they're changing the lineup now, which I know happens a lot in the comics, but whatever. We're talking about the movies.
Well, you can't like in those kind of movies, you can't give enough focus to everybody. Like
Right.
At least with the Guardians movies, you can give the focus on the group as a whole.
Yep.
But Jo, what is your number one?
My number one, also a superhero movie. Recently broke box office, records, made millions of fans cry, including myself. His original movie, 2002's Spider-Man.
I called it. Before we went and began recording this, you told me the movie from 2002, and I'm like, I know what movie it is right there. But yes, good choice.
And the wrestler starring in there, Randy Savage.
Bonesaw McGraw.
Bonesaw is ready. Again, I mean, it's a small role, but it's on my list because amazing Spider-Man movie. Great start to a great, I was going to say great trilogy, but the third one is so.
It's mid.
And it's, as the kids would say these days, it's mid.
But
and it's definitely, and I mean, heck, Sigdaddy, you ready for my second hot take for the MCU?
What?
Tobey Maguire, better Spider-Man than Tom Holland.
That's fair. I think that's fair. I really think that's fair. It's not like, I don't think it's that much as much of a hot take as you think it is too, but it's still kind of a hot take in a way, because I don't know if it's so hard. It's so hard to pick. I know it's between Holland and Maguire. Freaking Andrew Garfield redeemed himself in that movie, though.
Okay, yeah, he did. Out of the three in the movie, he was the most fun, I feel.
But yeah, I think Tobey's probably the best Spider-Man out of the three. I agree.
Yeah.
That's pretty. I think that's a fair assessment. That movie is so good, and that part of the movie it has implications throughout the rest of the movie series. Those three movies. That scene specifically.
Very true. I'll say if Peter Parker does not go into the wrestling match, Uncle Ben does not die, and then he does not become Spider-Man. Very, very important scene.
Yeah, that had implications beyond just that scene. It had implications for the trilogy of movies, pretty much. And hell of a choice for number one, man. That's a really good choice. I left it off because I left it off my list as I thought about it. I just left it off because it wasn't like prominently featured wrestler, but you know what? I still think it's a hell of a movie. Not better than Spider-Man 2, though. Not better than Spider-Man 2.
Oh, definitely not better than Spider-Man 2.
But that's our list. So let's just go over them real quick. So number 5 for me, Walking Tall. Number 4, They Live. Number 3, The Wrestler. Number 2, The Longest Yard. And number 1, Guardians of the Galaxy. Jo, give a little recap of your list as well.
I had The Punisher starring Kevin Nash, Predator, Jesse Ventura, Guardians of the Galaxy, Batista, the Suicide Squad, very important, the Suicide Squad, John Cena, and Spider-Man 2002 featuring Randy Savage.
Man, we had some killer lists, I think. So
Right.
Hope you enjoyed listening to that top 5 movies featuring pro wrestlers. That was a lot of fun. A little bit of a different vibe on this episode of Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show, where we talked more about movies than wrestling, but we still throw a little bit of wrestling into that, sprinkle a little bit of wrestling into that, into it.
Oh, and Sigdaddy, before I did want to mention this movie before we finish off, if that's all right.
Yeah.
One honorable mention I had was the animated movie Scooby-Doo Wrestlemania Mystery.
Oh
Have you
my
heard of
gosh.
this movie?
I think I've heard of it. I've never even seen it, but I've heard of it.
Never have seen it either, but let me tell you who guest stars with speaking roles as themselves, of course. John Cena, Kane, Triple H, The Miz, AJ Lee in a WWE movie. So that tells you how old this is.
Dang.
Santino Marella.
Oh my gosh.
And the man himself, Mr. McMahon.
Oh my, wow. Scooby-Doo WrestleMania Mystery. I think actually I've seen like a bits and pieces of this somehow, or at least like little parts of it at one point. But wow, yeah, that's one to put on there as well. That's the honorable mention.
Other ones I had, it's not a movie, but I'm a big fan of it. The Mandalorian, Sasha Banks guest stars as one of the Mandalorians. And another note I wanted to point out was we joked how John Cena and Batista and The Rock are in a lot of things, but I mean, he was in Two of Ours, Kevin Nash. He was in my list, your list, and an honorable mention I put was he was in Magic Mike. Now, I didn't see Magic Mike. I didn't watch Magic Mike. I just know he was in it.
Magic Mike, was it 2, I think?
1 and 2, I thought.
Oh, maybe both. I don't remember, but not that I go out of my way and watch movies about male strippers, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Never watched any of them. I just know he was in one of them at least. Making sure that is very clear.
Hey, it's okay if you watch those movies though. Channing Tatum can freaking dance, man. That dude's handsome as hell. Dance.
I will say that.
I ain't afraid to say it. He's handsome, man. Very, very
Joe
handsome.
Manganiello? He was in there.
Yeah, he's very handsome as well. That guy's a very handsome man as well. We're gonna stay actually for next week's episode. We're gonna stay kind of thematic, like a movie almost in a way, because we're gonna look back. We're gonna watch back, do another watch along episode. It's been almost 5 years since this magical match happened, a cinematic match. Actually, why did I say thematic at the beginning? I meant to say cinematic. Cinematic. We're taking a look at the final deletion. We're going to watch along, give our commentary of the final deletion from 2017, Matt versus Jeff Hardy, broken Matt Hardy versus Jeff Hardy. And what would pretty much change professional wrestling in modern time.
I would agree. Definitely affected the landscape of what people called a wrestling match going forward.
And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be wacky. It's going to be wild. Hope you join us for the ride here on Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show. Before we go, J.O., lay down them socials.
Socials, I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Jeremy Ordas, all lowercase. I'll repeat that so the MCU fans can come at me. At Jeremy Ordas, all lowercase.
And for me, you can follow Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show on Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Sigdaddy Wrestle, and on Instagram at sigdaddy.wrestle. You can find Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. And make sure to leave the show a 5-star review if you enjoy it. We always like the feedback, so make sure you leave it when you listen to Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show. And I hope you all enjoyed this episode here of Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show. Looking forward to getting into the Broken Universe next week, talking about the final deletion. For J.O., this is Skylar Sigdaddy Sigmund signing off, saying thank you for listening. And so long, everybody.